they left. But your biology still thinks they're the only thing keeping you alive. You still hear their voice in quiet moments, still wake up from dreams that feel more real than your day. This isn't weakness, and it's not just sadness. It's a neurological event. Because heartbreak doesn't just feel like a collapse. It is one. So if it hurts like you're dying, that's because a part of your brain thinks that you really are. You know that hollow feeling, the one that hits right before a wave of emotion takes over? That's not emptiness. That's the vacuum love rushes in to fill. Because it doesn't arrive gently. Love floods your system. It's sudden, overwhelming, euphoric. That rush, the warmth soaking into your skin like sunlight, starts in your brain. Dopamine lights up your reward circuit. Oxytocin deepens the bond. Serotonin brings calm. These chemicals work in sync, pushing you toward attachment, safety, and repetition. It feels natural because your system is engineered to seek it out.
And then attachment is how close you are to them, like how critically you rely on them for internal control and support.
When that connection breaks, the effects reach far deeper than just emotions. Your system crashes. The routines collapse. The messages stop. But your brain doesn't understand why. It registers the absence like it's been cut off from something essential, and it sends signals of distress. Hunger disappears, sleep becomes elusive, and your body stops responding like it used to. Your attachment wasn't just emotional. It became part of how your body regulated itself. Their voice, their scent, their presence. These things were mapped into your nervous system. You didn't just lose someone. You lost your regulator. Your emotional oxygen line got cut. Now, with that source removed, you're left destabilized. Not because you miss them, but because your biology hasn't adapted to the loss yet. That's why people scroll through old messages, why they linger on voice notes, why they fixate on past conversations.
The brain has to think that the person is gone in time and space. This has become much harder with social media, right? Because people can check up on people, they can hear from people. Now we are constantly renewing that the person is still there. And so love and the loss of love and the death grief are virtually identical.
These behaviors come from a craving, not for closure, but for regulation. When you're used to feeling stable in someone's presence, it takes time for the body to stop reaching for that signal.
We don't like endings. We don't like to lose things. And especially, we don't like to lose things that are important to us. And make no mistake, relationships are the single most important thing to you in your life.
In brain scans, the areas associated with physical pain show activity when someone sees a photo of their ex. The overlap is real. The heartbreak isn't imagined, it's embodied. The pain lives in the muscles, the gut, the skin.
Your heart sinks, palpitates, your stomach flutters, your palms get sweaty.
And it reacts to triggers the same way a body reacts to withdrawal from substances.
Brain studies have shown that the withdrawal of romantic love activates the same mechanisms in our brain that get activated when addicts are withdrawing from substances like cocaine or opioids.
Behind all of this is the amygdala, the brain's alarm system. When the bond breaks, the amygdala activates, scanning for danger, obsessing over the loss, trying to restore control. The brain's stress network begins to dominate, while rational thinking takes a back seat. That's why logical advice doesn't help, because the brain is in survival mode. And as this process unfolds, the mind starts filling in gaps. It replays memories. It questions everything. It asks if you ruined it, if you should have said something different. These thoughts aren't curiosity. They're panic responses, part of a wider pattern of emotional rumination. When the source of emotional safety is removed, the mind spins, trying to find stability. The mind loops because there's nowhere to place the pain. There's no obvious wound to stitch up, just an absence that keeps echoing. And in that echo, people try to rebuild the story, to explain it, to make sense of it. But that story keeps shifting because the brain hasn't let go of the old framework yet.
When your heart is broken, the same instincts you ordinarily rely on will time and again lead you down the wrong path. You simply cannot trust what your mind is telling you.
That's why even the smallest reminder, a smell, a song, a time of day can bring the whole structure crashing down again. The nervous system is still wired for the presence of a person who's no longer there, and until that wiring adjusts, you remain stuck in a cycle of seeking something your body still believes is essential. The love is gone, but the wiring remains. And now the system that once kept you safe is starting to tear itself apart. Your body reacts before your mind can process what's happening. You wake up in a panic. Your chest is tight. Your stomach turns. You feel like you're in danger, even though you're alone in your room. You try to breathe, but your body doesn't listen. The breakup already happened, but your nervous system is acting like it's happening again and again and again. This is a somatic flashback, a neurological collapse. Your brain sets off the same alarms it would if you were being hunted. It's a physical echo of a psychological wound, and it's not triggered by memory alone. It's sensory. The clothes you wore that day, the scent on your pillow, a song from your playlist. Without warning, your body reactivates the fear, the panic, the helplessness. The same way a trauma survivor might flinch at fireworks or freeze when they smell smoke. Your brain can't separate the past from the present, so it reacts as if it's still under attack.
Heartbreak is a master manipulator. The ease with which it gets our mind to do the absolute opposite of what we need in order to recover is remarkable.
In the days after a heartbreak, cortisol floods your system. This is the stress hormone, the body's alarm bell, but it wasn't designed to stay on. When cortisol stays elevated for too long, it starts damaging your ability to function. You lose appetite, your digestion slows, your sleep cycle breaks. You might start catching colds more easily or feel chronic tension in your shoulders, jaw, or stomach.
You may feel body parts you didn't even know existed in your body. My clients have found meaning with the symbolic meaning with their physical pain. Say their stomach hurts. At the core, they can't digest what's happening. Their eye twitches. I don't want to see what's going on. And whether this symbolism resonates with you or not, know that trauma can be held on a cellular level.
Your body is still trying to outrun the pain, even though there's nowhere left to run. And this reaction is older than language. It goes all the way back to the attachment systems in early humans. To a child, being separated from a caregiver meant danger, starvation, exposure, predators. The same biology still lives inside you. So when you lose someone you were bonded to, even as an adult, the body reacts like it's been abandoned in the wild. The worst of it doesn't always feel sharp. Sometimes it feels flat, empty, like you've been hollowed out. That's what loneliness does to the brain. The anterior cingulate cortex, the region responsible for social pain, becomes hyperactive. In brain scans, the loss of a loved one activates the same pain circuit as physical torture. The brain can't tell the difference between a broken bone and a broken bond. Pain is pain, and the signal gets louder when no one is around to answer it. The insula also activates. This is the part of the brain that monitors how your body feels. It creates an internal map. When you're lonely, it becomes more sensitive. That's why every heartbeat feels louder. Every movement feels heavier. The body becomes unfamiliar, unsteady. Everything starts feeling slightly wrong. The ache doesn't come from just missing the good times. It also comes from replaying the bad ones. And the brain isn't doing this by accident. It's trying to find something, an answer, a warning sign, a way to reverse what happened. So it loops. The last text, the last fight, the silence that followed. The brain replays it all to try to control the past, but the only thing it controls is your current emotional state, which keeps spiraling. And the more you spiral, the harder it becomes to form new thoughts. The hippocampus, which manages memory and learning, shrinks under stress. That's why it's hard to concentrate, hard to finish sentences, hard to plan anything. You're not just distracted. You're neurologically impaired by grief. Your immune system crashes. Your memory degrades. Some brains physically shrink under breakup stress, and without space to reset, the pain doesn't ease. It just becomes the new normal. You try to explain it to people, but they say just move on. They don't see the chemical storm inside you. They don't hear the thoughts at night. They don't feel the panic that lives in your bones.
There is no breakup explanation that's going to feel satisfying. No rationale can take away the pain you feel. So don't search for one. Don't wait for one. Just accept the one you were offered or make up one yourself and then put the question to rest because you need that closure to resist the addiction.
And so the isolation deepens. The bond is gone, but the pain keeps arriving because the nervous system doesn't need presence to react. It only needs memory, and memory doesn't always know when to stop. But memory is just one part of the damage. The real harm happens when those memories start rewriting who you are. The memories don't play back the way they should. Some feel sharper than reality. Others feel distant, blurry, like they happened to someone else. That's not nostalgia, it's distortion. After heartbreak, the brain starts editing. It doesn't just preserve the past, it reshapes it. Sometimes it makes them into the villain. Other times it turns them into the only person who ever really understood you. Neither version is real. Both are symptoms. The distortion of emotional memory happens because the brain prioritizes emotional relevance over accuracy. It tags moments with intensity, not with truth.
You have to be willing to let go, to accept that it's over. Otherwise, your mind will feed on your hope and set you back.
That's why an ordinary dinner feels more sacred in hindsight, or a toxic argument feels like something you provoked. You start looking for signs that it could have been different. And in doing that, the brain begins rewriting the narrative, not to deceive you, but to cope. This is how phantom attachment forms. Even though the person is gone, your brain continues behaving as if they're still present. You might still pause at their street, set aside a seat at dinner, leave space in your plans without even realizing it. Their presence doesn't leave all at once. It fades unevenly, like a shadow that hasn't caught up with the light. Some people even experience what's called object permanence disruption, a psychological carryover from childhood, where absence feels like incompleteness. You know they're not coming back, but your instincts haven't caught up. You still flinch when your phone vibrates. You still feel like you're being watched when you cry. The body behaves like they're nearby, even if your mind disagrees. But deeper than the phantom presence is something harder to face. The question that creeps in after the silence. Who am I without them? You built routines around their existence. You shaped your days, your moods, your choices around their reactions. Now, without that structure, there's collapse. You lose the version of yourself that existed through their eyes. And that version doesn't come back. This is identity destabilization. When someone becomes a mirror for your self-worth, their absence isn't just painful, it's disorienting. The feedback loop is gone, so you start to doubt yourself. Were you actually funny? Were you kind? Were you difficult? Or did they just stop seeing you altogether?
Say if it's the collapse of a relationship and you've been with that person for 8 years or longer, well, you did so many things with them that the idea that you did something wrong pretty much extends to every single thing you ever did with them.
These questions don't always have answers, but the mind keeps asking them anyway. Time becomes strange. You lose track of when things happened. What was a week ago? What was 2 months ago? It all blends together. This is the timeline collapse. The hippocampus, the brain's timekeeper, gets disrupted by trauma. That's why people feel stuck. You just know it hasn't ended. And because of that confusion, the future starts feeling less real. Plans feel hollow. Goals seem too far away. Even imagining happiness feels impossible, like something meant for someone else. This is how the brain protects itself, by narrowing focus, staying small, conserving energy. But over time, that protection starts to feel like a cage. You look at photos of yourself from before the breakup, and they feel fake. Like a stranger wearing your face. This is a grief most people don't talk about. The loss of the person you used to be. Not because they left, but because something in you shifted the moment they did. And if that shift goes deep enough, it doesn't just change how you feel. It rewires how you remember everything. But here's the thing. The brain doesn't just fall apart. It rebuilds. And what comes next is the start of something new. It doesn't happen overnight. Letting go isn't a decision. It's a neurological process. And healing doesn't arrive like a moment of clarity. It arrives in fragments, quietly, awkwardly. on days when you least expect it. After a breakup, your brain enters a reactive state, but it doesn't stay there forever. In time, neural pathways that were once triggered by that person begin to weaken.
Healthy emotion has a vitality curve. It emerges, and you feel it, and you express it, and then you're done.
This is called synaptic pruning. The brain gradually strips away unused emotional responses, redirecting energy toward more relevant patterns. You don't notice it immediately, but slowly your body stops reacting the same way to reminders. The surge of panic fades. The need to check your phone becomes less urgent. The pain doesn't vanish. It just loses its grip. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning and decision-making, starts to re-engage. You begin to think about the future again, not with excitement, but with stability, with structure. And for the first time in a while, the idea of moving forward doesn't feel impossible. But even as the brain begins to quiet down, something else takes over. A slower, deeper transformation that reshapes you from the inside out. Grief is often misunderstood as something that needs to be gotten over. But in reality, it's an active process, a sculptor reshaping your inner world.
Grieving a loss is a healthy process. It's hard to move on and enjoy a new horizon in life if you haven't let go of what's behind you.
The memories don't disappear. They become quieter. The emotions don't leave. They change texture. What begins as unbearable sharpness slowly dulls into something you can carry. This is called integration. Your experiences become part of your narrative rather than interrupting it. That doesn't mean you stop caring. It means the emotional weight finds a place to rest. The mind learns how to store those feelings instead of drowning in them. Even your sensory triggers begin to shift. A song that once made you cry might someday make you smile. The brain's reward system, once hijacked by one person, starts attaching itself to new sources of meaning. Small wins, deep friendships, creative work.
And we cannot predict how we will feel with accumulation of time. So please, practice self-compassion. And it's not just a magic pill you take once. It's a lifetime practice.
Grief, when allowed to complete its cycle, doesn't erase love. It preserves it in a new form. And once grief has softened the sharp edges, the mind starts looking for something to hold on to, a new rhythm, a new path, a new way forward. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting, but the brain can't move forward until the loop, the repeated mental replay of the past, is replaced with something else. And this happens through repetition, new habits, new anchors, new emotional patterns that begin to take root. Each time you reach out to a friend instead of checking their profile, each time you fall asleep without replaying the past, each time you feel something, even briefly, that belongs only to you, that's the loop being replaced. The brain is plastic. It learns. And it's always watching for signs of what's worth holding on to. When you create new meaning, even in small doses, the old meaning slowly fades. Not because of the rejection, but through evolution. And those small choices begin to accumulate, not just as changes in behavior, but as changes in who you're becoming. Emotionally, you're not the same, and that's development. Long-term healing changes your sense of self. Your identity adapts to include what you've survived. This doesn't mean becoming invulnerable. It means becoming more aware of your emotional boundaries, more sensitive to your values, and more grounded in your inner strength. Over time, this becomes resilience. Not the absence of pain, but the ability to live alongside it. A scar isn't a sign of damage. It's a marker that healing took place. And the emotional scars left by heartbreak, when accepted and understood, carry that same signal. You're not who you were when they left. But that change didn't weaken you, it prepared you. And soon, you'll understand why. Heartbreak feels like chaos, but underneath that chaos is a system, one that's running exactly the way it was designed to. We fall in love because the brain rewards connection. Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin. These chemicals create a state of emotional elevation that reinforces closeness. The body stabilizes in the presence of someone we trust. And when that person disappears, the system doesn't just turn off, it crashes. That crash is withdrawal. The same reward pathways that light up during love become disoriented when the pattern breaks. The cortisol rises, the nervous system spins, the brain scans for danger where none exists, because in biological terms, the loss of attachment is a threat. That threat is processed through physical symptoms: loss of appetite, insomnia, anxiety, panic. It's not imagined, it's embodied. In that state, the mind turns backward. It loops through memories, rewrites narratives, and clings to fragments. Emotional memory takes precedence over logic. The timeline becomes distorted. The self-image begins to dissolve. Without that other person as a point of reference, the sense of self can feel like it's missing pieces. But the brain isn't static. It rewires. As new routines form, as space returns, as safety rebuilds, the system adapts. Neural pathways prune. Emotional triggers lose their sharpness. The brain begins attaching meaning to other areas of life. And slowly, new identity patterns emerge. Not because you forget what happened, but because your inner world reshapes to include it. Grief isn't a breakdown. It's a recalibration. You learn to carry the weight differently. The pain doesn't erase who you were. It reshapes who you become. And that reshaping is part of healing. Not in the sense of going back to who you were, but in stepping forward with a more complete understanding of your mind, your memory, and your emotional biology. If this video has shown anything, it's that love isn't just a feeling. It's a neural experience that rewires who we are. And heartbreak, as painful as it is proof of just how deeply those wires run. If you're interested, check out the full source list down in the description below. We're not here to tell you what to believe. We're here to show you, because love changes your brain, but memory traps it there. And if you've ever wondered why certain memories keep replaying, why you keep feeling things that don't make sense anymore, it's not weakness, and it's not coincidence. There's a reason you keep living the same moment twice. Click here to find out what it is. Thanks for watching.